Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Finds it to Schultz. He's got a chance. Risking one. Missing the net. On the rebound. Penguins have scored on the rebound from behind the net. They have put it in. And Patrick Hornquist put it in off Rene, and the Penguins have a 1-0 lead. Oh, he is smiling like a butcher's dog. Up with the entanglement. He goes to the net. Tucks it in. Carl Hagelin, the empty netter, and the Penguins have a 2-0 lead. And ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Steel City Underground podcast, presented in part by StubHub, your official place to take a night off from Night's End. Find great seats for amazing events near you at StubHub. I am your host, Joe Kuzma, and if you hadn't already realized, well, that's not the Pittsburgh Steelers that you were listening to, but you did hear that we are the black and gold standard, and there are several other places within Pittsburgh, several other sports teams who love to sport that black and gold. One of them is your back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I had several requests to speak about the Penguins. And look, didn't forget, I had someone even say, I think on YouTube, hey, no mention of the Pens. Well, hey, come on. This was definitely the last episode with myself and Brian Roach talking about the Steelers' defensive depth chart. That was, well, it's just because it's published at 4 a.m. on a Monday morning doesn't mean that we were recording at 2 and 3 in the morning. By my goodness, no, we were still up and partying and celebrating a Stanley Cup victory. In fact, no mention of the Pens just for sake of, geez, it would have been bad if it would have went back to a Game 7, but I'm glad it did not. And they definitely broke the streak of the home and away stuff. Folks, you know what? I had asked several months ago, and all this crazy Stanley Cup playoff stuff happened. What do you guys do in the offseason? Are you strictly Steelers? I got about half the responses on the Twitter poll. It said, yeah, we're just into the offseason. A few people following the Buccos there. Some people still, like myself, still hanging on for the Penguins. Hey, look, really, the Penguins season really only starts when the Steelers season ends for myself. And I guess today we're going to talk some hockey. We're going to talk about the City of Champions, whether or not that's even a good idea. Let's start there. What if it's a good idea or not to even call Pittsburgh the City of Champions? In fact, there was a little bit of teasing about that last year and even into this year, and there was the nice patch they put on the Stadium Series jerseys that the Pens wore against the Flyers when they had the game at Heinz Field. There is a symbiosis between all of these major sports franchise teams, not just with the black and gold, but they really do all work together. You saw what happened with the passing of Dan Rooney and how each team, being the Penguins and also the Pirates, did something in memorial for Mr. Rooney and the Rooney family, and for the Steelers organization. Very classy from across all organizations. But the City of Champions thing, it's true. It's true. I just don't know if you want to put a bullseye on your back necessarily and say something like that. Let me give you an example. I think we could all agree, you really hate the moniker America's team. That would be the Dallas Cowboys, a team that, as Steelers fans and as Pittsburgh sports fans, as you're listening to this podcast, of course, we really don't like that. It doesn't sit well with you when you hear that the Cowboys, America's team's coming to town. I hated it even more last year when I had to deal with the Cowboys fans that they invaded. I get it. I really do get it. There were some guys that sit in the same section. We saw them at the next game, and it was just like one of those things. Hey, you know what? I sold my ticket for practically what the whole season cost. It was a money-making thing, and I really do dislike the whole money-making thing with buying tickets and whatnot. And geez, try and get a Stanley Cup ticket. I was fortunate enough to be there for Game 2. No other atmosphere like it. They even opened up the doors for the watch party there at Paint Arena. Still getting used to saying that, the new sponsor, since they're no longer known as Console Energy. So I don't know. City of Champions. You see the Pirates. It's been a while for the Pirates. 1979. They have 5 World Series trophies: 1909, 1925, 1960, 1971, and 1979. I guess you could say, versus the Cowboys and making some claim like that. The city of Pittsburgh, their teams, Pirates, Pens, and Steelers, they have the hardware to back it up. The Steelers, Super Bowl victories, 1974, 1975, 1978, 1979 as well. I wasn't born yet. Sorry, showing my age. A little bit younger guy. It's okay. Very few people, I think, alive for the 1909 or 1925 wins for the Pirates. So it's just going to be one of those things that are going to have to be left to historians. And if you can, you get some film and stuff of it. And I really do wish the NFL would open up some more archives. I mean, it's always great to watch some of these classic Steelers games. I always love that, the whole classic sports thing. But the Steelers also adding to that trophy case 05, 08. And then you have the Pens. I mean, Super Mario, Potato, 91, 92. Man, Yammer Yager still playing. I know some of you folks aren't the hockey type, so please, by all means, leave some comments. I want to hear what you think, because there was like a few that really wanted something geared towards hockey. Now, I'm not the hockey guru. I have friends that are for that. Myself, I'm a very young hockey fan at heart. I remember the early 90s, but as I've kind of dated myself, I'm 35, okay, just to throw it out there. It was about maybe 10 or 11. And growing up in Northeast Ohio, I mean, hockey, it was difficult just to get your coverage. Being within that regional territory of Ohio, you couldn't even get coverage from like some Cleveland sports teams. Now, football's always been very well covered everywhere. The Browns, Steelers, that was never so much a problem. It's a pain in the butt every now and then because it's still considered a Browns region where I hang my hat home, okay? But as far as like basketball with the Cavaliers, and you know what, that's a good point, actually, bringing up the Cavs. And then, of course, the Penguins. You're lucky if you got radio reception for a radio broadcast, let alone TV. Now, younger generations, yins are spoiled. You have cable TV, satellite dishes. I mean, you could stream it on a tablet now. They even advertise at NBC Sports. And in fact, my one cousin was even asking, "Hey, I'm having trouble. I'm stuck at this event. How can I watch this game?" It was, back earlier in the playoffs, and it was like, "Hey, NBC Sports. There you go." So, man, it's just amazing the way the technology works with that. But case in point being those early 90s hockey teams, the only really way that I was able to follow those was newspaper clippings and articles and seeing archived footage and things of that nature. Now, when Sid the Kid came along and you had the back-to-back appearances with the Stanley Cup in 08 and 09, and they hoisted the cup in 09, really when I started to really catch along here, you had some bad exits from the playoffs and whatnot with the Pens throughout the earlier part of this decade. But then you have the back-to-back seasons and being able to actually witness some of this, attend some of the games, be there. You could actually watch everything now. At least NBC has picked up. Man, for the longest time, I mean, hockey was not even on regular broadcast network television. So very interested to see what some of the fans that are listening to this have to say, because I'll tell you what, that parade was absolutely rocking. Estimated 650,000 people. Smashville, I call you Trashville. I mean, seriously, Predators fans, I get it though. Tennessee, you guys, Nashville, really behind your team. They came from being, one of the lowest seeded teams in the playoffs, for the Stanley Cup playoffs, that is. And you think about that over in Nashville and Tennessee, what they have as far as professional sports, even collegiate sports, because University of Tennessee, I don't know, they hadn't been much. I mean, when Peyton Manning was there ruling the roost, that was just national headline after national headline. But the Titans, I don't know, that Super Bowl was at the beginning of the 2000s, right? Like 01 maybe, 2000. They haven't had much of anything else really going for them in that area. So I get that their fans were really excited. I don't get throwing catfish on the ice personally. I think that's just a total WTF, if anything. Now, there's the guy who did it in Pittsburgh. I want to give him a pass. I don't know about criminal charges. Somebody was saying something about health code. What, his health? I mean, he did have the thing vacuum sealed, so that helped from probably getting any infection, having it stuffed down his pants with his compression shorts or so, whatever. But I don't know, man. It's not my thing. And the stink, I don't know. If you're the fan sitting next to this guy how do you conceal this? How do you not? Do you think the guy just has bad body odor sitting next to you? I mean, I'm talking about in Pittsburgh here. I'm not talking about in Nashville. I mean, everybody probably it must smell like is it like a bunch of hillbillies maybe that everybody thinks is sitting next to them? No, they have catfish tucked up underneath their undergarments. But in Pittsburgh, and particularly any of these postseason games, I mean, the restroom lines, just trying to go in between periods or whatever. I don't know when this guy would have snuck into it had to be during like play, or he had to get in like incredibly early to this game, because it is elbow to elbow, wall to wall people in both restrooms. Ladies, I really, really feel for you, because that line just does not move like the men's does. It's like 3 times as long of a wait. The men's restroom just is packed. And then you got a guy pulling out a giant catfish out of his pants. I don't know how anybody wouldn't have noticed. I don't even know how you don't bump or hit it into somebody. And if it's slimy, slippery, whatever be the case. I mean, it seems wild to me. Now, it was all in fun. I get it. The thing that kind of sat a little bit awkwardly with some of us was that Nashville, they had a really cool thing going there. They had so many musicians and music artists and songwriters and singers and whatnot have come out of, I guess that's another music city, maybe the music city. I don't know. I think of Detroit too. I think of Motown. But as far as the country music singers and whatnot that have come out of Nashville, I really like what they did with the whole national anthem, keeping it a secret who was singing. But I didn't like that they had the Sticks there playing Renegade, to the point of, I forget who it was on Twitter, had brought up a poll of, hey, should the Steelers consider maybe replacing Renegade? For those of you fans who have never attended a game in person at Heinz Field, sometime shortly after Heinz Field was built, it's a relatively new tradition, though it is a tradition. They played this song by a band known as the Sticks. It's called Renegade. If you're not familiar with it, look it up, especially the kids out there with your younger pop music and whatnot. They started putting a film package with it, and it's slightly modified. There's some radio calls like you heard as the intro into this episode. And they put stuff with it, and it's a defensive stand type song. If you heard me speak to Keon Adams a few weeks ago in that interview on the Steel City Underground podcast here, I was asking him if he had heard about it yet. He had not, but it's meant to just give the team a lift, or whether it be a comeback or just trying to make a defensive stand. There are many games where the place is incredibly rowdy depending on the temperament, the time left in the game, the score on the board. There are times where it's a blowout, and I don't think they even bother playing Renegade, but it's a very popular thing at Heinz Field. And the Penguins actually have something very similar. They play Black Sabbath's War Pigs, and they do it with some air raid sirens, which is like really cool. And I think to that effect, and adopting like the terrible towel. I hate when people call it like a rally towel. It's a terrible towel. Let's call it what it is. Myron Cope invented this thing. Anybody else who uses it is pretty much cursed, except for the Penguins, because of course they're part of the City of Champions, not Cleveland. I was mentioning the Cavs as a good point earlier, but they lost. The Indians blew that lead against the Cubs. I know some people are really chuckling. They're really getting their fun in on that because they don't like Cleveland. They don't like the City of Cleveland. But for a moment there, now the Browns never had us scared, but the Indians and the Cavs, hey, they're rolling, man. I mean, hey, 3 finals appearances for the Cavaliers, World Series appearance for the Indians. They at least have a leg up on the Buccos right now. Hey, Buccos might rebound here. So we'll see. I mean, you had Sid actually throw out a pitch. Sidney Crosby brought the Stanley Cup and threw out a pitch the other night for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And jeez, I got Cleveland on the brain now. Ugh. So Any who do you throw it to? Ron Haensi, who was traded. What a great story! I think 15 years in the NHL, the National Hockey League. I was calling it National Hockey Entertainment for a while, and you could definitely make a case for that based on some of the officiating. But yeah, Haensi. I mean, wow, what a big deal that had to be for him in that game, and just coming over to Pittsburgh, and pretty much kind of the same thing like Phil Kessel the previous year, taking out the full page ad thanking fans in Toronto when he was traded to Pittsburgh as well. So speaking of National Hockey Entertainment, I think there's something really cool. As you could tell, I have no show notes for this. Like I said, I'm not a hockey guy. I'm just a fan, okay? I am a fan just as much as the Steelers guys. That's what I was talking about, the Steelers guys. They just have embraced, and now they understand, too, maybe a little bit, like what it's like just to be a Pittsburgh sports fan. And none of these Pittsburgh teams really make it easy on their fans, but the Steelers guys... several of them talking about how they didn't grow up with hockey. They didn't necessarily watch hockey based on where it was in their area, much similar to my story. And it's just a fanatical, they've just become these huge fans of the Penguins. They were supporting them all the way. I believe the Steelers were just talking, or somebody was talking with the general manager, Kevin Colbert, who I think I mentioned, we bumped into him, gave a photo, handshake, and everything else. Hey, he said, nice draft. I know there's some people that don't like some of the job that they've done, but hey, the guy isn't one of the, what is he, like the third longest tenured general manager in the NFL if you're doing a terrible job. So all these people within the Steelers organization, quite a few of them, big hockey fans, and supporting the Pens. And it's easy to see the unity and the links here. I mean, everybody's wearing black and gold. So it's cool when you see Cam Hayward have a custom 97 jersey. It almost looks like that's what he should wear. I don't know, man. I mean, it's just one of those things where you have the links back and forth. But getting back to Renegade, they were talking about, since this is like a big rally song for the Steelers, if you haven't been to Heinz Field, or you haven't, we have a few videos up on our YouTube page as well, and you could subscribe there when we do make some updates. We've shot some of this stuff. There's definitely one from the Miami Dolphins wildcard game that was just played earlier this year in January that I personally shot myself using my phone. So check it out, because, I mean, it'll give you goosebumps. It'll give you chills. Same with the Penguins. They have a lot of cool stuff that they're able to do because they're inside an arena, so they got all these flashing lights, and you just rock out at those places. It's unbelievable, the just intensity at some of these games. I'd say the same thing for the Pirates too. I mean, the Pirates, their postseason games, I mean, it's just, there's nothing like support for Pittsburgh's team. So, I mean, you tell me, folks, is City of Champions a deserving moniker, or does it just bring maybe too much heat that maybe everyone should avoid? Because now you see, and this is where I'm going to go with this before I sign off on an abbreviated special episode here with the Steel City Underground podcast, presented in part by StubHub. The City of Champions, does this put pressure on other teams? You always hear everyone is just crying and complaining about the Pirates. Terrible closer. No, I'm not the biggest baseball. I'm even less of a baseball guy, I have to admit. I just don't have the time to follow. And I have some great friends over at North Shore 9 if you want to go hit them up. I know sometimes they tune in and listen to this podcast too, and they look to me for the Steelers stuff, so I look to them for the Pirates stuff. So look for them on Twitter and also on their website. They have an acquired taste for the Pirates, I'll say as much. But the expectations for Pittsburgh sports now, like, where do you go? I think the expectation for the Pirates isn't as much with some of the suspensions and injuries, and McCutcheon not doing as well, and Jung Ho, just that whole thing that's happened, and Sterling Marte, et cetera, et cetera. Where's the bar for the Steelers now that somebody could look and say, well, look, the Penguins, they won the Stanley Cup. They won two. They won them back-to-back. You could tell it wasn't easy. They had to win some Game 7s. They had to win in double overtime. They had to make some trades. It doesn't work quite the same way with football. It's a sudden death situation practically all the time. Every week, there's only 16 games, every game super important. You can't just say, well, shucks, I'll get them next time. That next time might not be for years if you don't play in the same division. And if you don't win that division, there isn't a next time. You're sitting at home and you miss the postseason. You might get in on a wild card. Steelers have done that here and there. But there were people that were even out there. It just blows my mind that are fans. 650,000 people apparently were happy enough to show up for a parade to celebrate the Pens Stanley Cup win. But there were some on Twitter that were already complaining about the next thing. And, of course, Marc-Andre Fleury, the goalkeeper or backup goalie for the Penguins, and he's been a starter off and on, but Matt Murray took his spot towards the end of last year, and then they traded some spots here in the postseason with Murray getting hurt and whatnot. But Fleury obviously has a huge contract. There was a lot of talk about trading him. You could see how that worked out to the Penguins' benefit of not unloading Marc-Andre, but now he's going to release some type of clause that there's an expansion team that's coming into this league and everything else. So more than likely, he might be gone. That's one of the things they're talking about. And it's like, really, you just want to send this guy out there? Because if not for Marc-Andre Fleury, maybe you're not back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. And who's to say if he'll come or go? I mean, it's so early to think about that type of stuff. But at the same time, they need defenders. They need this, they need that. Well, they had a defender in the name of Chris Letang, a very good defender who has been with this team for a very long time. And see, I do know a little bit about hockey here, folks. Letang was hurt. And you have other guys that get hurt, like Bonino and all this stuff that happens through the playoffs. It's he who stays healthy continues. And that's kind of where I'm getting at with the Steelers as well. The Steelers were banged up. They lose Bell after the first quarter of this AFC Championship game. They make it to the AFC Championship. Can we at least be happy that they got that far? Everybody wants the Super Bowl. You don't want to lose a Super Bowl, but I can't imagine some of these fan bases that don't even make the playoffs that would be happy to just have their team in the playoffs. The Cleveland Browns, the Buffalo Bills, the Detroit Lions. I'm sure there are several others, like the Miami Dolphins had a good drought until they made it in playing the Steelers last year. And I can't imagine these same fan bases saying, obviously, what can we do to improve to get to the next level? Well, if you're the Pittsburgh Penguins, what's the next level other than repeat? You're back-to-back champions. Nobody is better than you if you are the champion. Now, in the Steelers' case, the Patriots defeated them. The Atlanta Falcons made it into the Super Bowl, so maybe a couple of teams better. But I see room for improvement with the Steelers. Of course, I do see room for improvement with the Steelers, but I also see that improvement is there. And so long as they're healthy and together as one full unit, they're going to have a great chance at making a run towards the Super Bowl. There was Ed Bouchette, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Love Ed. Says some off-the-wall things every now and then. Very informed, very wise man. And he has this chat that he does all the time. And somebody had asked about this, linking the correlation and coming full circle with all of our black and gold teams. Is there more pressure on the Steelers to win a championship now since the Penguins have won back-to-back titles? And Ed has a great response to this. He says, no, the Steelers already put enough pressure on themselves to win a championship without help from anyone else. Boom. Just totally nailed it. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed me talking a little bit about hockey. Hope I reeled in the rest of you folks there with some Steelers talk as well as some Pittsburgh talk. We're having some fun. We're waiting for some developments here in the off season. It's slow. We can't wait for football, but it's coming. Training camp's just around the corner, so hang in there. We got some more talk about the off-season contracts et al., and maybe a few special guests coming up here within the next week or two. So stay tuned, and don't forget about our fan line. We have the email over at fanmail@steelcityunderground.com. We have the hotline, which is 203-900-4728. Give you the digits. It's 4SCU if you should forget it. Until next time, be safe, be good. Go Pens. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.